Action Research Project Alsada Isa 13749343 was done at Auburn North Public School. Here are my submission details, my Weebly address, my email address, and my declaration. We are in a position where we have to create engaging work for kids, or we're going to lose the battle for their hearts and minds. We have to be intentional about engagement. Criteria 1. Auburn North Public School is a government school that was established in 1981 and is located in Sydney's inner west. It has 702 enrolments across K-6 classes, 97% of which are from non-English speaking backgrounds and 20% are refugees. The school is renowned for its multicultural community and its research-based, data-informed and action-planned approach towards education. Stage 3, Year 6 was my allocated class. It comprises of 26 students from richly diverse backgrounds. There are 20 EALD students, 4 of which are in the New Arrivals program. 85% of the students have parents who do not speak English. As a result, parents participate in English and maths lessons so they can assist them with homework and enhance and engage learning. The program has proven the significance of Bronfenbrenner's ecological system theory on how understanding the ecology of immigrant families can help strengthen social work service delivery. 6HI is located in the newly built senior section of the school, which has been designed in accordance with Alfie Kohn's recommendations of what to look for in a classroom. The teacher has access to IBL, iPads, computers and air conditioning in an open class setup with 2 other Year 6 classrooms. I will be answering focus question 1, how has the instructional model hindered inquiry-based learning? And 2, being a constructivist teacher, how has having pre-scripted lessons impacted your creativity? At Auburn North Public School, the learning program is based on an instructional model where lessons are pre-planned and scripted. As a constructivist, I found this approach to teaching problematic, which led to identifying the key learning issues, research focus, and action plan question. I felt like the instructional model limited teacher creativity in personalizing the teaching pedagogy that best suited the students due to the fact that lessons were already designed and planned. As part of my self-reflective practice, I decided to incorporate inquiry-based learning into the instructional model. This will empower the students and the teacher. Students are driven by their own learning, which in turn manifests self-efficacy, autonomy, and ultimately motivation. The teacher acts as the facilitator of knowledge rather than the manufacturer. Due to the instructional model, the key learning issues are a lack of opportunity for meaningful learning experiences and differentiated tasks, as well as communication barriers. Students will be able to communicate their understanding via illustration, the manipulation of concrete materials, and other avenues inquiry-based learning lends itself to. Lessons are designed to create a natural desire to find out. Therefore, lessons will be interactive, collaborative, hands-on, creative, and engaging via high affective, high operative, and high cognitive tasks. Therefore, my action research question is, how can inquiry-based learning enhance student engagement and motivation towards their education? As a reflective practitioner, it is essential to my teaching practice that I use students' data to analyze the quality of student learning experiences. In analyzing the data, I will be examining levels of student engagement and achievement in order to determine the impact of my changes in both lesson plans and learning experiences. As research suggests, analyzing data is one of the central pillars of producing a high-quality report. During the practicum experience, I created a data archive where I stored all the evidence I collected that related to the action research question. The data became evidence because I'm using them to validate my claims to knowledge. The quantitative and qualitative data collected makes for teaching to be an evidence-based profession. The data collected were in forms of work samples, interactions, observations, and student self-assessment. Upon reflecting on data, I determined students' engagement and motivation levels and its impact on the learning progression. I was able to conclude that due to their active engagement in high effective, high operative, and high cognitive tasks, students were very engaged and motivated to learn. My unit of work on fractions used for the PPP2 case study demonstrated Student academic learning had improved significantly due to my implemented changes, with marks jumping 58%. Prior to the collection of the data, I obtained the principal and the mentor's approval. There was no need to gain the carer parent approval, as this process had already been undertaken earlier this year. The data collected will assess the impact of my pedagogical changes and quality of student learning, both in terms of their achievement and levels of engagement. Observation 1 is my PPP2 final report. I chose Standard 3 to evidence my successful implementation of inquiry-based learning in the instructional model and how my action research greatly benefited the students, considering the majority are EALD and refugees from disadvantaged backgrounds. My lessons aimed at having the students engage in high cognitive, high effective, and high operative tasks via concrete materials and the use of ICT in research-based lessons, as well as lesson starters via YouTube clips and documentaries. Observation 2 is based on my mentor's feedback. The commentary proves that students were in high operative tasks as they were doing most of the lesson, and that intrinsic motivation was manifesting as students were pushing themselves to new heights of learning. The practice of the insider classroom, namely student community of reflections and teacher-inclusive conversations, was evident as students were sharing ideas during their learning process. Observation 3 illustrates students engaging in high operative, high effective, and high cognitive tasks as they inquire into maths, science, and geography lessons. Tasks were varied, interesting, and organized to become more challenging. Students took ownership of their learning in such tasks as they progressed through lessons content. They were able to determine their level of competency and areas of weakness. Observation 4 demonstrates the significant impact inquiry-based learning and the ME framework has had on an EALD refugee student. My observation derived from an English lesson on debating about single-use plastic pollution. The lesson impacted the student on a personal level due to the video footage I showed on how plastic pollution damages marine life. Although this EALD student struggles with English, he was able to understand, interpret, and successfully meet the success criteria, so much so he used the information he learnt in a reflective exercise his teacher assigned 2 weeks after this lesson. Learning Conversation 1 illustrates a conversation I had with an emergent student who scored 0 in Term 1 and 2 for fractions, and after my unit of work on fractions using inquiry-based learning and the ME framework, achieved a score of 58%. In this case, I used a 1-meter ruler to demonstrate the relationship that existed between fractions, decimals, and percentages. When she said, "Oh, that was easy, can I try another one?" I knew she was on her way to achieving self-efficacy and autonomy of her learning. The evidence lends itself to answering focus question 3. How can IBL improve student autonomy and self-efficacy? IBL allows students to discover new information, and this process provides a sense of self-achievement and a natural desire to learn. She also displayed the big E, a school is for me attitude. Learning Conversation 2 happened between a student and me in a geography lesson in the computer room. As we were conversing about Australia's connection with the world, I found that students didn't know much about trade, goods and services, and the importance of maintaining a positive international relationship. As you can see in the transcript, I facilitated thinking so the student discovered the answer. His sense of achievement after the short-lived frustration proved he was proud of himself and continued to work hard in the lesson. Learning Conversation 3 sees students engaging in high operative tasks where they became empowered in their learning. The sample chosen is an exit ticket used in an English lesson on plastic pollution. Exit tickets provide opportunities for students to reflect on learning and assess how well they meet the success criteria. Students wrote, "I am really confident about the topic because of all the information I gathered. It felt really good in the lesson, but disturbed about the bird part. Miss, can we have more videos than just reading?" These are great examples of a discourse of power at play. Learning Conversation 4 was recorded between 2 students. I had students work in pairs to create a Dreamtime narrative. Students were highly engaged in what I would consider a lesson that fostered all of the small engaging experiences. Students used emojis to express how they felt about the task. The transcript highlights the levels of negotiation, educative conversation, and exchange of ideas. In answering focus question 5, how will work samples prove engagement? For me to identify engagement in work samples, they would need to show color, detail, information, and the use of content-related information. Work sample 1 makes evident students are in task as they use color, completed tasks successfully while working hard, thinking hard, and having fun. Core students even attempted extension activities that proved they were intrinsically motivated. Work sample 2 demonstrates students exploring the results of different combinations of mixtures using oil, water, bicarb soda, paint, and vinegar. The sample demonstrates students' engagement as they hypothesize, predict, and resolve scientific explorations. I decided to branch outside the syllabus with paint and the oil because students wanted to explore other mixture capabilities, and I wasn't going to prevent that motivation towards learning. Work sample 3 demonstrates students working together on scripts for their drama lesson. To make students even more engaged, I challenged them to omit the drama element voice and just rely on gestures and space and movement. The students were able to form their own groups without fuss, and within 10 minutes were ready to perform in front of their peers. Teams were not argumentative, but rather critical in their discussions. Work sample 4 demonstrated students being very engaged in their group tasks as they discover ways of converting fractions into decimals using concrete materials and peer negotiations. My mentor teacher recorded this lesson and posted it on the Auburn North Public School Twitter account. Emergent students got curious and even attempted to solve extension questions before finishing their task. The term engagement is a multidimensional construct in that observation of students' learning should include cognitive, emotional, and behavioral components. There exists an undeniable connection between student engagement and student self-assessment as they thinking about achievement, looking for evidence, working with people, overcoming barriers, and reframing tasks. When looking at self-assessment 1, it demonstrates students reflecting on their work and learning outcomes. Students were required to explain what they learned and how it impacted them. Students expressed how they felt about the lesson in their learning progression. Majority of the students' self-assessment demonstrated a positive impact on their learning achievements, which had increased their levels of motivation towards the next lesson. They used engaging messages, namely voice, knowledge, and place, to share ideas about how the lesson and content made them feel. In student self-assessment, 2 students worked mathematically to justify their answers and using methods for checking the accuracy of their answers within their community of learners. Students developed a sense of belonging as they were comfortable to share their weaknesses and ask for peer assistance, hence demonstrating engaging messages like control of their learning and ideas as they shared their problem-solving strategies in an open fractions activity. Self-assessment 3 presents data that students summarized after their plastic pollution lesson to determine if they knew enough about the topic for their debate. The 2 reflective templates illustrate a deep understanding of the positive and negative impacts of plastic pollution, which required students to think critically. Students were made to experience the Big E experience as students felt passionate about the litter in their school and took the initiative to pick up rubbish they didn't own and dispose of it appropriately. Student self-assessment 4 had students timed to assess the accuracy and the fluency of their understanding of the conversion of fractions to decimals. It makes evident the different methods of working mathematically, some using short division while others using long division. Students extended their ambition to take on the initiative of also working out its percentage. Students were able to assess how well they knew the outcome and the content under pressure, so to ready themselves for the end-of-term assessments on fractions. This reflective activity provided an atmosphere of the community of learners as they negotiate their working out. This shift of teachers between being the transmitter of knowledge to the facilitator of knowledge empowers pedagogical innovation. The reformation process aims at equipping students with 21st century skills like problem solving, teamwork, learning to learn reflective thinking in order to stimulate critical thinking, problem solving, and collaborative dimensions so students become active and informed citizens. Inquiry-based learning is considered one of the most effective pedagogical innovation strategies used in the classroom because research proves students learn best when they construct their own learning. As a self-reflective practitioner, the lessons I created were intentionally designed so that students control their learning. I would assess what aspects of inquiry-based learning encourage intrinsic motivation to think critically and how to manipulate student interaction so that collaboration was seamless and natural. For instance, in final fractions lessons, students chose maths equations that would challenge their skills. With the question, they would alternate between the set of activities I organized around the classroom to inquire the relevant resources to aid in their discovery. After problem solving, students engaged in the inside classroom learning process, student community of reflection to discuss their strategy and resolution to their equation, and then would undergo the learning process, student self-assessment using the real framework that targets how they felt, what they could improve on, and how it relates to their everyday life. Inquiry-based learning is multifaceted, so it can be applied to most, if not all, the KLAs. Students have shown that IBL leaves a positive impact on students' attitude and motivation. And my Canvas result proves this theory to be true as students demonstrated a 50% increase in their Term 3 fractions assessment. The topic of engagement has gained its international attention due to the decline in academic motivation and achievement, especially in students who are disadvantaged. The sociological dimension of the ME framework was established in line with Jeff Munn's Fair Go team, where the study assessed the impact of academic achievement amongst low socioeconomic students. The MEE framework defies the laws of such impacts and the notion that students are resilient and that if the right measures are in place at school to foster engagement and motivation, this will induce equality of learning amongst the masses. Auburn North Public School is considered to be a low socioeconomic area. My TPA required me to assess 3 students' learning progressions as a response to my innovative pedagogy. By instilling inquiry-based learning into the instructional model and assigning tasks that had the daily engaging experiences, it lent itself to the big E, engaging, where students displayed a school for me attitude. After their research into plastic pollution by taking their own initiative to clean up the school. Students' engagement must also encompass discourses of power where students share their knowledge, ability, control, place, and voice in order to stimulate that connection with the inside classroom learning processes and into the real world. The MEE framework was part of the fabric of every lesson I created via inquiry-based learning, and it successfully engaged and motivated students in their learning despite being disadvantaged in a low socioeconomic area. After forming my action research question, I immediately realized the school my practicum was at had their own way of teaching and planning lessons. This was problematic as I had to find a way of implementing inquiry-based learning in order to complete my assignment. Fortunately, the nature of IBL made this negotiation easy and in fact complemented Auburn North Public School instructional model. Therefore, long-term implication for my professional development would see the potential of negotiating my goals with my colleagues in light of best teaching practices. Short-term implication is that IBL requires time, and therefore immediate assessment of student learning would not necessarily represent an authentic score. Therefore, to tackle that, I would use varied assessment strategies while students are in task to demonstrate their learning progressions. Formative assessments are much more likely to reflect students meeting their success criteria rather than a summative assessment. Formative assessments would prove student engagement and motivation through photographs, annotated work samples, learning conversations, dialogic space, and many more other beneficial, authentic methods of collecting data on students. My next potential research cycle would see me extend on inquiry-based learning to project-based learning. I believe the two are alike, however, with project-based learning, students are engaging in the big E, a school is for me attitude, which helps teachers create long-life learners that are active and informed for generations to come. In answering focus question 4, what led to this particular research? It's the fact that I'm a kinesthetic learner and I appreciate the value of hands-on activities and its impact on students. IBL is the only way I can understand concept and store the information for the long term because I constructed them. IBL also lends itself to my next future professional development of specializing in inclusive education using IBL. I believe with the influx of new arrival and refugee students, it's crucial to learn more about inclusive education. A staggering 90% of the Auburn North community were EALD students. My professional reflection of the action research conducted is that I am proud of my achievements and the impact I made in the short stay at ANPS. The impact was mainly due to this assignment, in that I had to really think about student engagement and motivation that led to great results and students' outstanding achievements in the assessments. I actively participated in my focus group. I created the WhatsApp account and linked all the contacts together, as well as the Google Doc drive that we shared and collated our materials on the Action Research Project to provide feedback. I sent some of my assignments for critical reflection to my peers. They shared theirs and we were able to read through each other and provide positive feedback. I participated in Tutorial 7, where we collaborated to create each other's focus questions. This process was intense because we had to get a good understanding of each action research focus in order to create relevant questions. Throughout the PP2, we supported one another on WhatsApp and bounced ideas off one another. These are references. And Appendix 1 is the consent forms from my principal and the mentor teacher. And Appendix 2 is the focus group questions. Thank you very much.